Hello and welcome back to the podcast. So this is the first official episode of the podcast. If you caught episode 0, you'll have seen me giving a bit of my own background. So if you haven't watched that, maybe go back and check it out for this one. But today I've got a special guest who's someone who actually I do quite a lot of work with. Another copywriter called Jamie Lynch, and we're going to dive into his backstory. We're going to look at his lifestyle, what he's up to now, and just get some sort of tips and insights from what he's doing and what he'd advise for other copywriters. So I won't try and do his bio for him. I'll introduce Jamie and let him tell you a bit about himself. So, Jamie, welcome to the podcast. And do you want to let people know who you are and what you do?
Yep, thanks for having me, Mike. So, as you said, my name is Jamie. I'm a copywriter, do a lot of funnel optimization as well. I've been doing that over the past 5.5 years now, full time. Love the marketing world. Really find it fascinating how we can approach people, help them with their problems, put products out there, and just generally have a nice lifestyle whilst we're also making a living. I don't know how much more you want to know about me. I support Nottingham Forest, if that's what everyone's burning question, what football team. But not overly passionate just about that. Love surfing, taking it steady, and really copywriting for me and the marketing world, freelancing. It serves a bigger purpose for me, not just about making a living. It's more the lifestyle that it gives me and the freedom. So happy to talk more about all that.
Nice. Yeah, I think we're definitely on the same page that I talked about last time. How, for me, I don't see myself as a copywriter. It's something that I do that enables me to live a certain type of lifestyle. So, yeah, I think before we dive into your backstory, maybe talk to us about what does a typical day look like for you at the moment with what you do.
Yeah, so typical day, get up in the morning as we all do, but that can vary depending on the day. But most days I get up when I want. I tend to head straight into doing the coaching that you and I do together. So for those that aren't aware, Mike and I run a copy coaching community together. Tend to do that, then tidy up some personal projects work-wise. That's maybe 3 hours of work, and then I'm on with the rest of my day doing what I want to do, which involves a lot of volunteering for things that are passionate, for what I'm passionate about, going to the gym, hanging out with mates, that kind of stuff. So really the work is what I try and get done as soon as I can throughout the day, and then on to the rest of the things that are more important to me, really.
Like it. So we'll probably circle back and talk a bit more about lifestyle and that kind of stuff a bit later. But how did you get into copy? Let's start at the sort of beginning, so to speak, so we can skip out the baby and toddler stage. But at school, were you entrepreneurial? Like, what was the teenage years? What were you doing? What was your first foray into the workforce or into business?
Yeah, so I started my first business, I guess, at school, selling sweets.
Nice.
Out of a backpack. So my mum and dad had a macro card, as it was back then, which I guess Costco is probably the nearest thing to it now, like big cash and carry sort of thing. And I used to go and buy a load of sweets for like 20 quid, and like penny sweets, and then set up a little conveyor belt with my mum and dad and I, making bags of sweets. Health and safety was a big concern, so we were stapling the bags shut, as you know. That's a real good idea. And then like carting those round. Selling those. Tutti Fruttis were the big seller back in the day. So I did that when I was about 14, I'm guessing. Had a paper round. I mean, selling sweets out of your backpack. It's not like I was Elon Musk or anything, but it was fun. I think I used to make about 20 quid a week profit out of that with my paper round. I was doing all right for a 14-year-old, able to buy my ice hockey shirts that I was interested in back in the day. Left school. I actually dropped out of school at 17. I decided it wasn't for me, the whole A-level university route, and started my own window cleaning business straight out of school, which wasn't necessarily a dream, should we put it that way, but I thought it was cool how I could earn a decent amount of money every day on my own terms. I ran that business for about 13 years. It worked out in the end. So built that, bought other window cleaning businesses, sold it off in the end when I finished, and got into personal training. But throughout the window cleaning, over sort of like from maybe my mid-20s onwards, I was always listening to podcasts when I was out about fitness and about marketing. And then I decided finally that I'd had enough of the window cleaning. Decided to become a personal trainer because I was passionate about fitness. And I remember it'll be the November of, where are we now? 6, 7, maybe 2015, 2016. The October time, I was like, right, I'm going to do personal training. I signed up for Premier Global as my to get my course through, which would have been the following spring. And then the next day, I was straight online looking for someone to help me grow the fitness business, because I was like, well, being a personal trainer is one thing, but you got to get clients. I'd been learning about all this stuff through the podcasts, like copywriting, Facebook ads, blogging, SEO, all that sort of stuff, everything really. And I put it straight into action. And then the goal was never to build anything from that. It was just to learn how to do it, so when I did get qualified, I could get clients. But within the next 2 months, I built out a program, an online fitness program, launched it on December the 26th of that year. That went nuts, and then went full time on the fitness business within about 2 months after that. So by the February of whatever year we are on now, I think it must have been 2016. But throughout that process, I realised actually what I enjoy was the marketing, not the training people. Motivating people to get in shape and stuff is different than naturally enjoying it, I found out. But the marketing stuff, the putting out funnels, creating lists, interacting with them, putting X amount of pounds into Facebook, and then having someone on the phone and turning that into Y amount of pounds the next day, I just was like, it was a game. I mean that in a nice, ethical way, but it was fun, and I just kind of fell in love with that process. And then with the fitness business, like having to get up early hours and doing stuff like that, like I just hated it. I used to have to get up at 4:45 a.m. because I started running a boot camp by this time, and it was just, I'd had enough of it. So I just decided that I think it was now we'd be in the summer of let me think, 2018. I was like, nah, I'm going all in on copy. And then I started started buying a lot of courses, invested a lot of money in that. Not that I had it at the time, and I had to go to my parents and did a deal with them to basically get me I got the opportunity to be mentored by someone highly regarded in the copywriting space. One-off opportunity. I didn't have the money for it, so I did a deal with them on the profits that I earned from it, which has worked out quite well for all of us.
Nice, definitely. Quite a bit there. I think it'd be really cool to unpack. So if we like park the story there, what I find interesting is that outside of maybe the window cleaning and the selling sweets, I think our journey's been quite similar in some respects. Like outside of part-time work, I've never had a proper job. I think, am I right in thinking you also worked at Wix, the DIY store?
I did.
Yes, so we have that in common.
Yeah.
We have playing the bass guitar in common.
Yeah.
We have fitness business in common. We have copywriting in common, and never really having a proper job. So was not having a proper job something you always knew you wanted? Because I know that for me, I very briefly thought of going into the legal profession, went to college, realised I hated law, and then I was like, I don't really care what I do. I just don't want to work for someone, or don't want to do a 9 to 5. Was it similar for you? Were family entrepreneurial at all, or was it just, were you the black sheep, so to speak?
No, my dad growing up, he'd always been entrepreneurial in one form or another. He'd run sales organisations, doing direct sales for like double glazing firms. I remember trading cars when I was a kid, stuff like that. He's the person that really introduced me to marketing, through and specifically copywriting. I remember him mentioning about this thing called ClickBank, and there were these people that would go out there and find these products on ClickBank, and then they'd rewrite parts of it and strike deals and affiliate commissions and stuff like this. And what I later found out was basically rewriting leads of a sales letter and getting the performance increase on the conversion rates, etc. So my dad was a big influence there. As for me and my not wanting to work for a traditional career path, I suppose I briefly thought about becoming a music teacher, because music was that was my big passion in my teens. But the idea of going to uni and doing that, it never really like truly enthused me. But I loved having freedom to do what I want when I wanted. I didn't, looking back, particularly use that freedom well at the time. That's me saying that now, a little bit older, less hair on my head. Not that everyone could tell because I've taken the shine off it today with the hat. But yeah, I remember probably getting into my mid-20s and thinking I'm unemployable, because I just know that there are easier ways to make money, and I'd built that confidence in myself that I can figure things out. I don't need to be a cog in a chain, and no disrespect to those that are. It's just I know for me that would be a real challenge, simply because I've never had to adapt to that scenario. And I like building businesses. I like the freedom that they offer. So I think if I were like in a job now, I'd always be thinking, oh man, if I just did this or put that little offer out there or offered this little service, I could earn the same amount of money in like just a couple of hours or whatever. But you know, the mind can start spinning games with that. But yeah, not really a life I'd lived. So a bit different from those that maybe are trying to transition out of it.
I think it's quite interesting because often people think that if you're business-minded or entrepreneurial, I think that they think you're not a troublemaker, but you're extroverted. You've never maybe weren't particularly well behaved at school. You're not good at following rules, that kind of thing. And I see myself as very sort of introverted, mild-mannered, always very well behaved. But I think I was just quite questioning and always wanted to know why I had to do things. And it wasn't a case of, I need to break free from the system, or I'm not ever going to do what anyone tells me to do. But it was just, for me, it didn't seem like a viable option to go into a job and be told you can have X many weeks a year holiday. You have to be here at this time, be there at that time. My thought was always, I'm perfectly happy to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, maybe not long term, but at least for a bit. But as long as I'm in control of that, do you feel you were the same, or were you a bit more of a renegade and a troublemaker?
No, at school I was the model pupil, for want of a better term. I don't mean that to blow my own trumpet, but throughout like year 7 to 11, I guess secondary school, never missed a piece of homework, never got a detention.
Yep.
I wasn't, I was still had fun, wasn't a geek, for want of a better term, but I just got on with what we were supposed to get on with. But I think it helped that I grew the community I'd grown up in, which is now an extension with the volunteer that I'm involved with. A lot of the people I was with, the adults as they were at the time, they ran their own small businesses. So the idea of doing that wasn't alien to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something that really scared me. I wasn't trying to build the biggest thing in the world. I just wanted to make enough money to have some fun, buy a surfboard when I wanted, and just not have to slave away. But I guess as I grew up, got into these other businesses, the fitness, the marketing, just the general belief that anything is possible. Again, I think that was definitely a big influence from my parents. That the only limitations are what we set of ourselves, within reason. I mean, it's not like I'm here, with Tesla as a brand or something, or an Apple behind me. But there's just no desire for that.
Yep.
But that belief that if you want to create something, you can. I don't know whether hopefully I wouldn't call that arrogance, but just as an element of confidence.
No, I agree completely. I think I have a very similar mindset that, there's always, if you're stuck, there's always people who can help you, and work ethic goes a long way as well. That's not just to say you work hard doing the wrong thing, but often just hard work trumps having the best strategy, I think. So I suppose, did you find then that having the window cleaning business, it gave you a bit of what you wanted business-wise, but maybe not all of it, and that's why you switched to training people? Is that sort of the general gist of it, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so the window cleaning was good money for what it was. I don't know if many people know this, but you can earn really, really good money doing it. And it is a simple business. You turn up, you get someone, knock on the door. Do you want a window cleaner? Yeah or no? I find that it's the easiest sell in the world. They either do or they don't. You give them a price, they're happy or they're not. You turn up every month, you get paid. And you just have loads of people doing that. You lose one job, you get another. So it's very simple, low stress. It only becomes stressful if you're not getting around on and people start calling you up, where are you? But what it doesn't offer is location freedom and an element of time freedom. So the way I ran my work did give me time, but I couldn't just go away for a month. Not necessarily that easy, but I was tied to the location, the area, which for me, I wanted to get out of that area, but it took me a good number of years to pluck up the courage to figure that out. So that was there were definitely pros to it, and I was grateful for it. Definitely got me to where I am now in many respects. The fitness stuff, that was just more a case of I just wanted to get out of the window cleaning, because that theoretically offers the same constructs. If you're working in person, you're tied to a location. I did have online. I had to venture out. Well, I chose to venture out into the boot camp as well, which tied me to a location. But again, you set the business up in the right way. You position yourself as a premium offer, not as another pure gym equivalent. You can definitely earn decent money, but I didn't like the hours basically. So I had to. Well, I know I like the freedom of being able to do stuff. Like, for instance, with what we do together, if I don't want to have to get up and do it straight away in the day, I don't have to. As long as the work's getting done sometime throughout the day. And you and I have a very flexible relationship with the work stuff. So if one of us can't dip in, as long as the members are getting served, and that's key, then everything else is kind of fun and simple, and takes care of itself. So that freedom to focus on, yes, the work, put my best into it, but also to be able to dip in and out of other things, like those things that are important to me as and when they come up. That was really what drove it, I suppose.
Got it. So fitness business started, did you say 2016?
Yeah.
And that was boot camps first?
No, online first. A 6-week online program. Basically, I got a mentor that ran Facebook ads for other online brands, fitness brands. Ricky Knight, his name was, and I started getting one-on-one coaching with him straight away, and he had a 6-week program and just let me carbon copy it, tweak it to my style of training, what I liked. Bear in mind, I wasn't a certified personal trainer at this time, but I geeked out tons on fitness. That all stemmed from a dodgy knee, but I built this 6-week program and created a really tight niche that I was going after. So yes, initially online. The reason I ventured into boot camps was because of the whole Facebook ban. I woke up one day and I was like, hey, I didn't get any applications last night. What's going on? And turns out Facebook can shut your ads down just like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that business was a learning curve, but it was it was what it was. Managed to get started up with the bootcamp stuff. I tried to relaunch the online brand, but any efforts to do so, another ban. Got my suspicions as to why. Now I think it was all because it was under the same domain. But anyway, started off online, went into the bootcamp. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'd been probably around about a similar time, maybe a year or so before I had the same. I was running ads to a fitness business that got shut down. I think the sort of the thing that did it for me, I was accused of selling alcohol to minors, which
yeah.
I don't think I've ever done, but I think it might have been that
I've always had my suspicions, mate.
No, I've got many dodgy businesses, but that's for another podcast. I think it's because I mentioned being able to drink alcohol and lose weight, and I'm guessing that probably triggered it.
With CBeebies on in the background.
Yes, as I say, we should not delve into those other businesses, but so you found then that obviously bootcamp doing well, but didn't give you the freedom.
Yeah.
Looked into copyright a bit more, so you were aware of copywriting, I suppose, from doing your own marketing, doing this course and stuff. And then, am I right in thinking it was Matt Fury who was the first person you signed up with?
Yes, that was the mentor I mentioned, alluded to before. So whilst I was running the bootcamp, it was all driven through Facebook ads, building a list, emailing the list every day. I had a challenge funnel to bring people in. We did certain intakes as well. So, and it was super tight knit. It was only I ran 2 boot camps, one for guys in the morning, one for women in the evening, and we had like an induction period, like a 4 week on ramp to challenge as well. So it was all in the local town I was living in, and it was all set up through Facebook ads, funnels, and email. And I had a working knowledge of that because of the online business, and I'd studied a lot, bought different programs and stuff, but really realized while I was running the boot camp that email is where I was going to be able to drive this, because I was building the list. I knew if I built that relationship, it would work out. Matt Fury opened up a mentorship for I think 10 to 12 people at the time, and he'd never done anything he hadn't done anything like that for a very long time, and he was someone that I'd heard of, had followed, respected at the time. And that's when I did that deal with my mum and dad I mentioned before, with the efforts really to grow that bootcamp business, because I was at the time thinking about getting a unit, taking on a lease for premises, expanding, maybe multiple locations, all that sort of jazz. Simply because I was like, well, if I'm running boot camps and I want to earn more money, then you need more people. If you need more people, you need more space, etc., etc. Glad I didn't go down that route, because I probably would still be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that was really the killer. I just hated getting up so early. I don't mind getting up early, that's not an issue. Getting up early to get straight into work and doing stuff like that, that's what I hated. I wanted to choose to be able to do that, not to be forced to. And I wasn't at the position where I could have bring on trainers to do that for me. Also hesitant at the idea of managing a big team. It's like that to me, from where I was coming from, would be the opposite of the freedom that I was after. So I'd gone through that program with Matt Fury, and then that summer of 2016, I was like, no, I'm copy's for me. That's where I'm going to go. I'm already writing copy. I already understand it. I'm using it. I've seen the benefits of it for my own businesses, but I'm just going to do this as a living. Make it, but go into freelancing basically. So that summer, I bought a program from another copywriter, Mike Shreves, purely around getting clients for copywriters. And that came with a week's mentorship as the bonus for the initial intake, which was all done via voice notes and stuff. And at the end of the week, I asked one of the things he taught in his program was referrals. So I asked him for a referral. And I got it, because he'd known about the Matt Fury background and seen my copy. And he put me in touch with a big publisher in the States that needed a junior copywriter. So that was my first sort of foray into that. I sat on that referral for about 3 or 4 months because I was petrified basically. The idea of making that leap was very scary. In and around this time though, I'd been coached a little bit by Dan Meredith, and he gave me a big kick up the backside as well with a few things. Gave me a lot of confidence. Gave me the opportunity to write for him a little bit, which went really well. And I owe a lot to the confidence and the help that he gave me. And I remember going to an event actually off the back of something that he taught. I went to an event, and it was the first time I remember, and this is something I try and pass on to those that I have the privilege of coaching with copy. It's like, I just remember going to this event as a personal trainer. It's a fitness event, and I just literally took off the personal trainer hat on the way down and put on the I'm a copywriter hat, having only ever written copy for myself and 1 or 2 pieces for Dan. No, actually, at the time, I hadn't written for Dan. He was kind of still throwing me under the bus, testing me out. And I went there and I was like, I write copy for people. Might not have done it yet, but that is what I do. And that mentality and that weekend turned out to be a complete pitch fest. But I made a connection with a guy that lived another town or 2 over. He ran a business that was doing a couple of million a year, but they didn't have a clue what they were doing with email. And he was just chatting. We were just chatting at the bar. Bearing in mind, I've never written for anyone else. Here's a guy who runs a couple of million a year, successful, built this great business. And I was like, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Well, what about this? Oh, you've got that offer. Yeah, man, we could position that like this. And my eyes were just popping everywhere. And we ended up meeting up again a week or so later, when we were back home, and continued the conversation. I wasn't trying to sell to him or anything. He was like, okay, Jamie, this is fine. This is all good. How do we hire you to do this? And I was like, yeah, well, we'll get to that. But, there's this and there's that. And it turned out to be my first gig. Got a commission deal on it as well, which, looking back, I don't know how I managed to wangle that one, but I did. And that turned into like a retainer, which gave me the confidence as well to take on that referral, that full-time position. So 2016, the summer, decided to start copywriting. Went to that event probably in the October. Got that gig straight away, that one with the business that was local to me. Pushed the button on the trigger, or pulled the trigger rather, on the referral gig, which was an in-house position. Started that at the end of 2016. So I went from not earning any money from copy to full-time within those few months. I'd taken on like a couple of little gigs off Cult of Copy jobs board at the time for like $150, I think they were, for like, I don't know, 7 emails and a bunch of ads, which now I think that's really poor pay compared to what I know I should have been paid. But I thought it was ace. I earned $150 for an afternoon's worth of work when I was doing nothing anyway, and I was getting paid to practice. So it was epic. My copy was rubbish, but it was an experience. But that 3-4 month period really just went for it, and then within 2 months I'd shut down so this will be 2017 February now. January 31st 2017 I shut down the bootcamp, because I was just all in on copy at that point. Probably about the time I took you on as a coach as well.
Yeah, I certainly remember. I actually use your story. I give you full credit for it, but the idea of that seminar you said about and giving yourself permission to be a copywriter, I think is a massive thing. And I'll often say to people, look, even if it's not going to an event, even if it is just, right, I've got an hour on Tuesday afternoon and that's the time I'm going to be a copywriter. I think that's very powerful, because a lot of people do struggle with that as an identity, as being, I don't know, a dentist or a parent, or, I don't know, a data engineer, whatever it is. So yeah, I love that from neither of us proclaim to be mindset gurus, but from a mindset standpoint, I think that's really powerful. So in terms of then the in-house position, was that pretty full on? What would a day look like for you when you were doing that?
Yeah, so I think they wanted me like full-time, 40 hours a week. I told them I wasn't available for that. I needed I wanted to work 4 days a week, basically, because I wanted to create time for that volunteer stuff I was already involved with. So I think I was contracted for 30 hours a week. Technically, I was, from their perspective, an employee, I think, but I can't remember. It's like W2 or W9, whatever it is with the states thing. But basically, I was a subcontractor to them, a freelancer, but it's in-house, so you're theirs, and they need social posts written for something you've never heard about. The deadline's at the end of the day, you find out about it and you write it. They need a book funnel written, and you've never done one of those before. You start clicking around on Facebook ads until you find one, and then one pops up and you're like, oh, I'm just going to swipe that. But it wasn't the best paid. Like, I was getting, for that freelance gig I was getting, that I mentioned, that I was also doing, I was getting paid more, or the same amount, bearing in mind that I also had commissions as well, for maybe like 20% of the work. But what the in-house position gave me was exposure. So I had to write everything from Facebook ad funnels to the book funnels, to tweaking checkout pages, to upsells. It was just anything that the brand involved. And they sold they basically partnered with gurus who had specialists. So one of our programs was, one of our partners was an e-com guru. He taught people how to create e-com stores and make a living from that. And we created the front end funnels to do that, and then the back end of the business had all these ascension models to bring people in. Our job was to get feet in the door. Basically, we had in-house media buyers, and we had a team of copywriters, and that was the real so let's say like blessing from it, for want of a better term, you know, the benefit, because my copy chief was a really switched on marketer. The guys I was working alongside were all hungry, good copywriters. I mean, they're all well-known names now, like A players, and that isn't me just making that up. That's, you know, the copy chief runs one of, if not the biggest guitar tuition brands on earth now. Insane numbers he's doing every month. One of the other guys, he's probably one of the most respected email copywriters in the direct response world, sort of leading the charge there. Worked with some of the biggest brands around. So it was a real interesting place to be, and I would never have been introduced to the things I have now without going to that. So they put me into like Copy Accelerator, for instance. So I had 2 years. I think it was about 2. No, they put me into it, and I was until their business, the Inhouse company, kind of blew up a little bit. But they put me into Copy Accelerator, the whole team, and they sent us to the event and stuff like that, which was awesome, and learned tons through them, which I would never have been able to do. I was looking at trying to join Copy Accelerator off my own back, but at the time I was like, I can't afford $1,100 a month, because I just didn't have that. So it was loads of exposure, like I mentioned, and a great learning curve. Not the best paid, like I mentioned. I think that's one thing you hear about getting into copy. Oh, you can earn this much a month, you can earn this much an hour for doing whatever. And it is true. You can earn great money, but there's also a lot to be said for learning and having that exposure to different types of copy in a fast-paced environment where your copy's getting put out there into the market and you're looking at the data. I remember, for instance, looking at the Vimeo stats for one of the VSLs I wrote and seeing this nosedive off a cliff at a certain point. And I remember looking at the copy and thinking, what's causing this? And I can remember the wording and everything now, but I would never have known that if I was just putting out a VSL for a client every now and then in the hopes that they ran it. Like, we put a VSL together, I did the copy, it was in production that week, and it was getting ads sent to it the next week. So the pace at which I could get feedback was what really helped give me that initial grounding. Wasn't the best environment for me, if I'm honest, because I'm much more suited to a bit more of a chilled pace of work. But for the period of time I was involved with that I doubt I'd have the skill and the knowledge I do now without that.
I certainly think there's a time and a place for work like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of copywriters are very resistant to working for an agency or working in-house because there's potentially that lack of freedom. And like you alluded to, the pay is often not, well, it's definitely not as good as you could get if you were solely freelancing. But I found very similar at Clients on Demand. I mean, that was well paid, but it was more just the exposure to that many offers. I mean, I'd have never got that had I been purely freelancing and not working with a bigger company. And like you say, it was sort of working on maybe 20 or 30 different offers at a time in relationships, finance, health, weight loss, spiritual stuff. You're like, okay, this is great experience. And it means you get to work with dozens, if not hundreds of clients, which I think you can potentially get 5 to 10 years worth of experience in 6 to 12 months, maybe. So yeah, I'm fully on board with that. There are downsides to being a hired gun, so to speak, but there's a lot of upsides as well. So in terms of the journey then, talk us through the next couple of years. So for those who don't know, you and I run a mentoring program together, which we started in early 2020. So what was the sort of gap then between the agency work and starting of that?
Yeah, so the agency, I think it was I transitioned out of that in the summer of it must be 2018 or 2019. I'm getting my years mixed up now. I can't remember. But I remember going to the Copy Accelerator event, that first one that they did in Austin in the September, and I had nothing. I didn't have any clients because the company, they'd gone from like 180 employees down to like 30 in a week, and I was one of the casualties of that. But I got to go to the event still, and I remember thinking, well, I've been involved in this community. They know me, and there's going to be tons of people there that need copy. And I went along just without the anxiety, trying not to be too anxious about the situation, not having any clients, but knowing that I've got skills now built up off the back of that, working with that agency, and that there was going to be opportunities there, and just went along and just spoke to people. Went to the bar, had a few drinks with different businesses owners and stuff, and was just generally there to soak up the environment, having never been to anything like that, and made a ton of connections, which over the next couple of months turned into work, essentially. Some of it required me to do free work up front. I remember working on some ClickBank funnels for one of the guys that was there, and there was no promise of anything that this would develop into anything. They understood I was still kind of green-ish in that world, but they gave me the opportunity, and put some leads together for their funnels, and had a bit of an impact, and they put me on to some other projects. Managed to double conversions on something. They're like, right, okay, cool, let's really get cranking on this. And we were working together for a couple of years after that. So that would be before we started the what we do together now, and on into that. And then just off the back of those connections, meeting, reaching out to different folks that I'd met, or referrals I'd got, seeing jobs put in marketplaces, knowing that I was probably able to just smash it out of the park for them based on my experience, and it was a bit more of the gigs I wouldn't have been comfortable going after, or maybe reaching out to brands that I knew I could have an impact for, and doing it that way. So a real mix of client getting, but definitely stemmed in my specific instance from going to the events. There was two themes there, I suppose. That initial one that I went to, where I put the copywriter hat on, as it were. And then this one where I just went, I was like, I'll meet people, I'll chat with them and see where that goes. I know that's quite a vague answer to your question.
No, that helps. And I think it's one of those where at this stage you just lose track of years as well, don't you? So that everything kind of blurs into one. So then it's, 2019, you're doing a bit of coaching with me, we're working together a bit. What was the next stage? Because obviously you and I put together FKS Pro, our mentoring group, in early 2020. Had you wanted to have like your own offer, so to speak? 'Cause for a lot of copywriters, that's a big thing. What was the kind of motivation behind that? What was the idea? Because I always say to people that I kind of wanted to get into coaching, but I didn't really want to do a mentoring group on my own, and it was you who brought the idea to me. So what was the thought process and the reasoning behind that?
Good question. So you'd been my personal one-on-one copy coach. So I was in Copy Accelerator with the agency I was working with, and then I'd hired you, or we were working together to work on like other projects that I was involved with, and to just generally give me like one-on-one support moving forward. And this was throughout that period where I was working with the agency on side projects, and also I was with you still when I came away from working with them and went to Copy Accelerator at that event. I know it's not like I'm trying to advertise Copy Accelerator, just it was pivotal really. And I guess what had happened is you'd asked me to speak at your first event, FKS event, and that would have probably been a week or two after I'd been to that first event in the States. And you asked me to come in as the guy that had kind of been from zero to where most of your students were hoping to get to, as like the guy in the middle, I suppose, and just share my story, much like we are now, but obviously more in the moment back then. And I'd never had any aspirations necessarily to be a copy coach, or anything like that. But what I do specifically remember is coming down to that event the night before, so that would be the Friday night, and knowing that a few of the guys that were going to be at the event were meeting up for just for a bit of time in the evening for beer or whatever. And I thought, I've got an idea about what I'm going to say the next day, but I don't know where these guys are at, what they're struggling with, anything. So I was like, I'm going to go and do my market research in the pub. I think that's a great tip, by the way. Great place to do market research, not ChatGPT or whatever. so I could get a feel for where everyone was at, so I could tailor what I was going to share to them, which, looking back now, was probably quite a smart move, because it's just tailoring. It's getting to know your marketplace. That's a real big thing I learned about from copy. I remember hearing it from the old greats like Eugene Schwartz and all that sort of stuff. You absorb yourself in your marketplace, go and watch the films they watch, hang out in the places they hang out. I was like, well, Mike's crew, they're going to be in the pub the night before. I like Guinness. Let's go and have a Guinness with them. And I was there and I was just soaking it up. I didn't tell them I was speaking the next day. Not to be deceitful, it's just didn't need to. And I just remember soaking it all in, listening, and I kind of had this thought over that weekend, that one of the big things that had helped me progress was coaching, being coached. Our work together, being in Copy Accelerator, stuff like that, other programs. But the big problem with most of those things is the investment. It's not a small chunk of money. And I think it's important that I stress at this point that I didn't have any other responsibilities. I've not got a family, a wife, a mortgage or anything like that. It's very easy for me to make big pivots, and to invest big chunks of money that I was making because I had nothing to spend it on other than what I wanted, which made stuff like that easier. But most of these guys had families, they had mortgages, they had other responsibilities. So spending £600, £1,000, £1,500 a month on a business expense was a big deal for them. So it struck me that, hang on, you don't have to do that to get help. I'd seen through being involved with different groups, group coaching really did work, and it's that kind of middle ground. And I know that you weren't really looking to scale the coaching on a one-to-one level, I also know it takes a lot out of you. So to be able to kind of marry the coaching and onto a group model, as it were, and to expand out, when I saw what these guys were experiencing, I was like, if you offered something like that, I thought that would really help these guys, because you've got a great course in FKS. It's helping these people progress anyway. You've already got success stories, but there's a big gap between taking a course and hiring a mentor. So what about if you meet him in the middle? And that's when I said to you, off the back of that, over the next couple of weeks, have you thought about doing this? Is that something you'd be open to? Because it strikes me that there's this gap in the middle that could be leveraged, or not leveraged, but accommodated rather. And do you want to talk more about that? Again, no intention of doing it. It was just purely getting to know the market and see what the market is struggling with and what you can put together for them. I stress that point because as marketers, as copywriters, that's really what we should be doing. Getting to know our market, see what problems they've got, find solutions to solve those problems. Not just think, what can I sell them?
I think that's massive. It's a mistake a lot of people make. I've made that mistake before, but certainly that's the easiest type of market research you can do, and it saves a lot of wasted time, wasted effort, and wasted money as well. So I think that's really interesting. That again, you were, I don't like the phrase, we were in the trenches, so to speak, and actually talking to people, as in real life talking, not an Instagram poll, not putting a post out on Facebook, not doing a survey. It was talking to people. And I think that's reflected in the fact that I've sort of run through kind of how we've done with stuff before, but had a massive uptake on our first launch. Yeah. Every single launch we've done, I'd say, has had varying degrees of success, but I don't think there's been one we've done where we thought, oh, that's really not gone as we wanted to. And I've been quite open that we've never really tried to scale past about that sort of 40 members at any one time, just because I think both of us value our freedom too much. We've both tried to build bigger businesses in the past, or at least thought about it, and then realised that's not what we want. So for me, I think one of the things people get is the more intimate aspect with it. They get very quick feedback, they get honest feedback. And I always tell people, if you are close on being an A-list copywriter and you want feedback, maybe we're not the best place for you. We've got some people who are around that level perhaps, but most of us is 5 to 15k a month. If you want to get in that level, we're pretty good at helping you do that. So without making it into a full-on pitch, what do you think that we do that's different to other people out there?
I think our approach is very laid back, and that is because you and I are both very laid back about business. Doesn't mean we don't take it seriously, but it's not growth at all costs, and it's not growth at the expense of quality or the individual. And I think that's borne out in the fact that we've still got members 4 years on that choose to be with us, not because they need us, because many of our members have graduated, for want of a better term. Not that that's really something that it was ever the intention, I suppose, or like a path, but it's natural. You get involved with something, it serves its purpose, you move on. But we've still got members that choose to be with us simply because of the fact that they aren't just a number. They aren't just X amount in the bank account every month. They're now, a lot of them are friends, and they're there because we're prepared to give them the best that we can, and we're bringing everything. We're not holding anything back. We're not trying to force them to stay if they don't want. We've always been transparent about that. There's no contract, there's no minimum terms. Like, you either want to be with us or you don't. We don't want unhappy customers. We want to serve people, and that works really well from our perspective because of the laid back, but also from the fact that it reduces that kind of fear. It's not like you are signed up for 12 months. It's like, that's like, oh man, I don't know if I can do that. On the flip side though, we give everyone the personal attention they desire. If they need that bit of extra help, we're prepared to do it. We don't do the work for anyone, but we don't just go in and say, right, change this word to that phrase there, do this, do that, bang, 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 there you go, ship it, to get them off the plate. Mm-hmm. We actually here's what to do, here's why to do it, here's how you can apply that to other circumstances in the future. So I've got to where I am because I've been taught by strategic thinkers when it comes to copy and marketing. And I think that's probably true for yourself as well, and Alexander as well. And the three of us bring something different, and we pass that along. We're not greedy with our knowledge. It's not mine. It's like, here's why that applies. For instance, this past couple of weeks, I've been helping one of the members with a project, and it's a very specific case. And they're like, I could have just given them the do 1, 2, 3, and they could have done it, but they wouldn't have understood like why they're doing it. And then the next time that scenario comes up, oh, Jamie, what do I do? Do 1, 2, 3, or in that case it might be 4, 5, 6. But it's like they wouldn't understand what they're doing. They're just basically the middleman. It's like, that serves nobody. Whereas when we take the time to explain, like, here's what's going on, here are the variables we need to look out for, here's what might happen when we push the button, but here's another scenario, so here's how to think in that situation. Oh, and if you come up with this again or against us again, here are the things we need to take into account. So that now they're getting the whole picture, not to overwhelm them, but also more so to educate them and to give them the knowledge and the confidence to move forward. And that is how we get members to progress, because they're not just coming in and following a lead like framework or a template. We're teaching them how to become marketers. Not that I profess for myself to be the best marketer in the world or anything, but I've just absorbed a ton of information, and through the optimization work I've done and the copy work, I've learnt stuff that I'm happy to pass on. So I think I guess if I had to sum it up, which probably would have been the easier answer to your question, in a nutshell, it's just not being greedy with our knowledge and being willing to share, and not looking to just keep people in there for the sake of it.
Yep, love it. I'd agree with that. So 2 questions I'd like to finish with. I'll give you them both now. Can decide which one you want to answer first. Number 1 would be, what advice would you give to anyone who's starting out, fairly new to this, in order to help them have the most success possible? And number 2 would be, what's next for you in business?
Okay, I'll take the first one first. I think for me, what I've come to realise over the past year when it comes to getting into copy is it is a very lucrative way to earn money, and you can do earn a lot in very little time. But in order for that to happen, more action is required than I think people have expected themselves. I think there's a phrase that I've used a lot in FKS Pro with different members, is the only thing stopping you from where you are now to where you want to get to is the action required to get there, something like that. I think I'd probably nick that off someone like Alex Hormozy or something, but it's true. It's like if you want to be where you are now and you want to earn 10 grand a month from copy, that's perfectly possible, but you're not going to get it from sending one outreach email, or the chances of that are extremely limited. But if you send 100, 1,000, 10,000 emails, those numbers might seem just bonkers. But to send 10,000 emails, you can actually just set up an email system that can do that automatically. That takes you half an hour a week to run. Are there skills that you need to develop to make that happen? 100%. But you can do that. Or you can take the sniper approach where you invest a lot more time and stuff. But the point is, effort is required. It's not it's not Disneyland, you know. It's not like you just get on a ride and you get off the end and it's like, that was the best thing ever. Effort is required. And I think some of copywriting is a biz op at the end of the day. It's an opportunity, and how do you sell opportunities? You make it sound as attractive as possible and as easy as possible. But realistically, effort is required. And I think one thing we try to help our members with is the fact that if they think they can send 5 messages a week, chances are they can send 25. If they can send 25, chances are they can send 50. A lot of the stuff that's stopping that from happening is fear. And that's something that I think we've actually got better at helping people with, because we become more aware of it. But it's not done indelicately either. So yeah, if you think you need to send 5 messages, put a 0 on the end of it. If you think you need to send 10, put a 0 on the end of it. And realise that is possible, and probably won't take any much more time when you get in the groove. If you just accept that it's going to be scary. I went to that event putting on that copywriter hat, like bricking it. I'm glad I did, because I wouldn't have got the gigs. That gave me the confidence to move forward. Made a ton of mistakes on the way, but that's fine. Don't be afraid to make those mistakes and just take the action. Again, it's easy to say that as someone doesn't have a lot of responsibilities in life, but doesn't mean that you've suddenly got to sell your house and get rid of your business and put your family on the street just to send 100 messages in a week. There's time available. There's ways of doing it. I know that. I don't know if that's any good, but that's what I've got to say. So.
No, I think it's a bit like, it might have been Hormozy again, you just referencing him. That I read something from him the other day that said along the lines of, if you make the decisions the average person will make, you'll have the lifestyle the average person has. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the average person's lifestyle. I'm all for people doing whatever makes them happy, whether that's business, job, and 20k a year and 2 million quid a year, whatever makes you happy. But I think most people watching or listening to this, most people in copy, they don't really want average, whether that's from an income perspective, freedom perspective, just fulfilling your potential. So yeah, if you take the easy route, you're only going to get the lowest possible outcome. So like you say, it's not popular advice, but I think it's absolutely valid, and it's often not talked about enough when people want to say, use this system and get clients. Systems are important, you need them. Some systems work great, but you need to have the fuel for the fire as well, so to speak.
Yeah, I think if we actually look at what most people are trying to achieve, if they could earn £5,000 a month from copy, that's life-changing money for most people. It represents a great deal of freedom. It's higher than the average wage, and they can get it done in less time than it would take. Even if it's like relatively full time, there's still tons of freedom there. Mm-hmm. And what's £5,000 a month is probably 2, maybe 3 clients. To get 2, maybe 3 clients, even as a beginner, if you're closing 1 in 10 calls, you need to speak to 30 people. To speak to 30 people, maybe you need to book 50 calls by the time people don't show up. To book 50 calls, how many messages do we need to send? Well, we need to send at least 50. Like, you're not going to get a 1-for-1 booking rate. But even if you got to send 5,000, 500, 5,000, whatever it is, the first 1,000 messages or so, that might seem like, I can't send 1,000 messages. How am I going to do that? Well, when you've got a process involved and structures like we offer our folks, and when you get comfortable with it and you know how you're targeting people, getting a list of 100 people to message over the next couple of days is not difficult, and it can take a couple of minutes. If you've got a bit of money to get a VA to help with that, I know these can sound scary sort of thoughts, but it's not that difficult to do. So when you actually break it down, even if if you could say to someone 6 months from now you'll earn £5,000 a month from copy, are you prepared to? Yeah, I'm willing to do that. Well, we can break those numbers down over the course of 6 months. There's work involved, and it's not a strict, A to Z scenario. There are variables that come into play, like with anything, but it's just a case of following process, and that's one of the first things we give people is like, here's the process of what we're trying to accomplish here, and how to break it down into specific scenarios. So I think if people can get anything from what we've shared about breaking into copy, it's that it is just a process. It's not something that you're born with. I didn't know any of this stuff. I sucked at English at school. My worst subject, failed it. The only mark I didn't get a pass in was English. I didn't read a book from cover to cover until I was in my mid-20s. All the odds were stacked against me in that fail. Well, not stupid by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a learnable skill. And so are these processes. It's just having to allow the fear to exist, but taking action in spite of it.
Yep, I'd 100% agree with that. So final question then, what is next in the world of Jamie Lynch?
Yeah, so hopefully more of the same, really. I like where my business is at. It's not something, I'm not trying to scale to stupid amounts every month. I'm comfortable with earning the money I earn, having the freedom I have, because to me, the copy, the marketing, the business serves the purpose of giving me the time that I want to invest into the volunteering that I do. To be able to look at the surf up at Saltburn, which is 2 hours from where I live, my nearest surf spot, and say, do you know what, I can get up there for lunch on Thursday, there's going to be decent waves. I'll go and do a couple of hours surfing, I'll get back out, have a bit to eat, open up my laptop in the car park, do the coaching, whatever I've got to do, go in for another surf, and do that. That's really what I get a great amount of contentment and satisfaction from the way that I'm able to do it, because the work serves the purpose of giving me the freedom to do these other things, which is where my source of joy is and where my happiness comes from. So it's just a case of putting in the effort required to keep that going.
I think that's often overlooked. People always want the next thing, and actually sometimes we never want to play small and hold ourselves back, but a lot of people are doing great, and there's no issue with staying there, I think. So from a messaging standpoint, I love that. It aligns with what I believe a lot, as in grow if you want to grow, don't if you don't. For me, the one thing I'm always trying to grow is just freedom in general, whether that's locational, financial, time freedom. But if you grow one at the expense of the others, that's just not worth it for me. So yeah, I think we're definitely on message with that one. I think that's a very good point to leave things on. So yeah, Jamie, thank you very much for your time today. Really enjoyed that. Hope everyone has as well. So guys, what I will do, I will put all relevant links down in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. I'll put a link to Jamie's, probably LinkedIn best for you, is it, if people want to connect?
Yeah, I'll give you my Facebook as well. That's
nice, cool. So yeah, links to both Jamie's bits in there. I'll put a link for FKS Pro in the description as well, just if you're interested with that. We're always open to questions. If you're weighing up and thinking about it, let us know. We'll give you an honest answer whether or not it's for you. So if you haven't already, it would be great if you could subscribe. As I said, any messages, let me know. I'm always very responsive, and we shall catch you on the next episode.